Awesome. Well, welcome everybody. I'm super excited. We are this entire month focused on how to tell your story. That is going to be the conversations that we're having on repeat. And I'm really excited because the first person that ever taught me anything about how to tell a story in my business was Greg Weido. And I can see it written on their whiteboard in their office, the 4 steps to your basic story, and they would drill on it on repeat all the time. So really excited, Greg, that you could be here to share with everybody. And just so you guys know and just have an understanding of how this hour will go, Greg's going to talk a little bit about the importance of being able to tell your story and how that works. Then we are going to actually practice writing your own, putting down what you want to, like pen to paper, putting down what it is that you want to say, and then maybe sharing some of that, getting some feedback from Greg. And then eventually we will move into breakout rooms where you're actually going to be sharing your story with others. So just make sure that you're somewhere where you can unmute and participate when the time comes. And, without further ado, I also, at the very end, when we all come back, we'll announce where points are and just where the status is with everyone that's doing cash flow continued. And we will have that conversation at the end. So I want to jump right into Greg. So over to you, Greg.
Ooh, thank you. So I just, out of curiosity, who here do they know, I guess this is a question for you too, Danielle, how much time have you spent on personal stories or do we know the 4 components, or we just absolutely need to start at the basics and just go from there? All right. So, so your personal story, basically one of the things that we know, right, is that people buy on emotion and they justify things later logically, right? And so one of the things that your story really has to resonate emotionally. And so this is really kind of an important thing, but to go to the 4 basics or the 4 components is your story, your personal story should consist of where you were at the time that you were introduced to whatever, so in this case, it's ASEA, what you saw, what changed, and where are you now? And so as Danielle said, yes, we spend a lot of times on evolving our personal stories. And so one of the things is, I always get the question is when do I talk about my personal story? When do I mention it? When's the right timing? So one of the things that you really have to kind of get good at is knowing the opportune times in which to integrate it. And so one of the things I will tell you is that without your personal story, you really have no depth to a relationship or depth to a potential sale. Meaning if they don't understand what makes you tick or what makes the reasoning behind what you're doing, you really don't have a customer for life, And so one of the things that, we always kind of pride ourselves on is we have very long-term relationships with many of our clients simply because they understand where we come from. And so your personal story really is really just illustrating that point. And so where you were, what you saw, what changed, and where are you now, those are all just components. But the main thing is you have to it can't be a 20-minute story, a 2-minute or less is good. They say elevator pitches. Well, I will tell you, with whatever you say within the first 8 seconds. Now, this is typically when you first meet somebody. So I'll give you a case in point of something that actually happened to me recently, where the personal story became a changing point, right? Or a directional or changing point in the relationship. And so we all meet people, or engage people, right? Socially, or on social media, right? So you guys, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you guys are using. And so you hope that a lot of those engagements, right, turn to conversations, right? Which turn to relationships, which turn to business potentially, right? Is that your involvement am I correct in that assessment? That's your involvement, how things go. So you engage, you establish communications, you form a relationship, and hopefully someone becomes involved with your product or purchase. Again, like I said last time, you're always striving for three outcomes: client, which is of course for you guys a product user, a representative, or a sphere of influence for your business, right? And so the main thing is, the story that I had recently was cold market, met somebody on LinkedIn, and just developed a conversation. So the question becomes, when you start conversing with people, like, what are you saying? And so like a lot of times I get very good at like diverting what they're really talking about. So like a lot of times my direct question was like, I really don't want to sell for you. Like that was a response from someone. So that we know that's an objection, right? So like, I really don't want to sell anything for you. I really am not interested in a SIA. I'm really not interested in the product or service that you're offering. Well, what did I say? I simply said, is like, well, the point of this interaction isn't so much to sell you anything, but really just to establish a relationship. Like, we're all on this earth together. We're all here to make this place a better place. And so like, the point of getting together is just to learn more about what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to do. And if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, that's what my desired outcome is for us. And he goes, oh, okay. So then we connected on a Zoom call, just like this today. And then, it evolved from like, oh, so of course I'm in finance, right? And so like, oh, I teach Dave Ramsey at my local church. Like, I'm in charge of like facilitating the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University. And so I'm like, really? So like, I'm interested, like, do you guys, one of the biggest challenges with Dave Ramsey is like the implementation side. Like, where do I go? Who do I talk to? Right. And so like, we evolved that conversation from like, I'm not interested in a Primerica to like, he's like, hey, I want to have you come in and talk to my Dave Ramsey folks. There's 100 people like currently in a Dave Ramsey class. And so like, you have this platform, you have this opportunity, right, to then of course share your story. And so so I will tell you my personal story and how it evolved, because this might be helpful to you guys. When I was first introduced to the concept of just how to build a financial life correctly, my wife and I were 3 months into our marriage. Like any young couple, you start, like talking about money and personal finance and kind of how to bring two lives together, right? So because like how I grew up and how I learned about money is different from like how my wife, grew up and learned about money. And so you're kind of bringing these two kind of, these two entities together. And so fortunately for us as students, a teacher appeared, and that teacher for us was a woman by the name of Robin Jankowski. Now, none of you know Robin. No, Danielle does. But, Robin retired at age 31. She's independently wealthy. She took Progressive Insurance Company public when she was like a solvent. And so she took them from a privately held to a publicly held company, was able to retire at age 31. And so Robin came into our life at a very, very influential time. And she said, you guys are young. You have plenty of time to invest and save for the future. But if you got hit by a bus tomorrow, you just ran out of time. And so she really taught us how to build a financial life correctly. And so in 2 years, in our mid-20s, my wife and I saved about $50,000 in 2 years, really got on track financially. However, in the summer of 2008, July 10th of 2008, my wife was nearly killed in an accident. She was hit by a car while riding her bike in Colorado. And the driver of that vehicle didn't have insurance, didn't have a license, was 18 and pregnant, like worst case scenario, right? But because of that conversation that Robin and I, we had with Robin, several years prior, financially we were okay. We didn't become a statistic. We just have, we're currently still going through COVID, and, like a lot of people lost their jobs and they were financially ill prepared to handle that situation, right? And so you look at my wife, she couldn't work for a year, but yet we were still financially stable, and that could have happened to anybody. But because we learned basic financial concepts and the power of just, implementing that knowledge in our lives, we were fine. And so I tell you that story today simply because, we walk the walk, like we just don't like just suggest random things, but like we've actually done it in our own personal lives. And so when I tell people that story, obviously there's an emotional component. I'm often crying when I say it, because if you don't know anything about the tears bring the dollars, guys, tears bring the dollars. So if you understand that, Danielle is laughing because she's heard me say this before, but like I usually try to hold back the tears on most occasions. But like literally, like think of Danielle's story, like getting hit by a drunk driver, more or less telling him this is the new normal in her life. Like that's pretty emotional. So like if you're sharing that with people, like the emotional side of things, you've got to find, if your story doesn't contain a component of emotional or have an emotional component to it, you need to find an emotional component to it, right? Because ultimately, I will tell you, that's not only going to help them make a decision to have a relationship with you, but also it's going to help you solidify your why in this business, right? And sticking and staying. Nobody comes to a SIA because of a SIA. People come to a SIA because of you. right? You are ASEA. You represent ASEA. You are CEO of ASEA every day that you're talking about ASEA. You are the first time potentially that someone is hearing about ASEA, and because you're delivering that message. And that message had better be effective at producing one of those three outcomes. Again, client, representative, or sphere of influence for your business, right? So your personal story has to create simply an awareness of like, wow, this really happened to Danielle and what she decided to do with that information or that knowledge. I could see myself doing something with that too. Like I could, like, and you're, like for you, again, know the difference. A professional has a conversation with an agenda, an amateur has a presentation. Does that make sense? So a professional has a conversation with an agenda, an amateur has a presentation. So you shouldn't really be talking about like the science. I mean, you can talk about the science and, the chemical makeup of ASEA if you want, but that's not really going to get you anywhere. The main thing is you really have to be talking about your why, your story. How can that help potentially the person that you're conversing with, and where can that lead? Because an effective personal story translates into all that. And, in every situation that I haven't told my personal story or some component of it, like it hasn't been a successful outcome. And so another thing that you want to think about as well is that, kind of being empathetic, putting yourself in their shoes, right? Because everyone's in different places, both financially, both health-wise, and everywhere in between, right? So remember this, I know there's a couple guys on the call, is that women feel, men think. Okay, women feel, men think. And so like, you use the feel, felt, found method. Okay, I don't know if you know what that means. Is like, I completely understand how you feel, Danielle. I felt the same way. But what I found is, using this product every day, using the solution every day, it's made a tremendous difference in my life. And I feel it can potentially be the same for you. If you say that to a guy, is like, I completely understand how you think. I thought the same way. And here's what I found. And so like, just know those subtle differences between the psychologies in male and female. But again, the messaging is that, I always go back to the foundation of just about everybody that you converse with. And that is, when you're talking to the right, you can't say enough of the wrong things to the right person. And you can't say enough of the right things to the wrong person. We often try to fit a square peg in a round hole when it comes to like, you really need this. Like, you want it more than they do, but like, they don't want anything to do with it. And one of the things that I'll leave people with is like, to me, like, this is all a game. Like, this is all a game. Like, the whole like social media platforms, all the people that you can engage with, like, it's a game to see who's going to play with you. And one of the things that I'm really good at is leaving people with, all right, so like, you could leave people with, I'm just not interested. This is hooey. It tastes like pool water, whatever. Whatever they want to say is like, let me know who else do you know that's serious about changing their health, because obviously you're not. So, I mean, you can be as bulldog as you want to be, but like, what do you have to lose sometimes when it comes to either including people or cutting people out of your life? Because like, I'm very serious about what I do, and I'm very serious about changing lives. But if your messaging and the energy that you're dispensing isn't in line with that, the congruency in that, then like, like, don't let people waste your time, right? But your personal story just, it should elaborate on like just your why, like, why do you do what you do? Like, and the other component too to think about, and I don't know if Danielle, you've spent time on this, is approaching people with the business or approaching people with the product. What are the outcomes related to either one of those? I mean, the two scenarios, because often in ASEA or any multi-level, multi-level marketing, networking type of thing, you start with a product first, right? True. And so I will tell you that in my field and your field, it doesn't matter which field it is, there's an 87% success rate when you start with the business versus the product. You start with business first, product last. That was life-changing for us to know that, because when you say like, listen, Alyssa, I'm a fellow business owner in the community, and I'm always looking for a few key people to grow and expand with. And I just absolutely love what we do in the lives that we're changing. You know, who do you know currently that's just looking, maybe in career transition, or just as open to making more money? You know, and like people are like, well, you know, because when you present yourself as a business owner versus like, you know, a legalized drug dealer, you know, the main thing is like, or whatever you're pushing, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you're pushing a SIA, right? Just open your mouth and drink this. But the main thing is, like the product side is like, you know, you've got the science, you've got the complicity, you've got some, like, you have some complicated things behind the product side, right? So then, and like that stuff took a long time to evolve and develop into what its final form is right now. Like you could, you know, like that's where people get caught up in like trying to explain it, you know, but like you can explain a business, you can explain like what you're trying to accomplish in the community and beyond. So like I would encourage your personal story to like include some of those components, because like just play around with it. Like just say, hey, 1 week I'm going to talk all about business and the next week I'm going to talk all about product and see what the results are. Because like there is no time frames for this. You know what I'm saying? Like you might want to make $100,000 by the end of 2022, but like when it comes to like your evolvement of your skill set, like it's just allowing yourself the grace to get better every day, like 1% better every day, right? And so the only way you can do that is to practice and like play with real people, right? And so that's I don't know if that is that long enough, Danielle. I can keep going.
That was great, Greg.
But
so I think one question that everyone's going to ask is, what were the 4 components? You said them really quickly, I know, because they're top of your mind all the time.
Okay, so where you were, so like when you saw like this for the first time, right? And so like what you did, like as a result of seeing it. So like our story, Robin, like where you were, newly married, 3 months into her marriage, had no financial game plan, right? What you saw is like, wow, somebody actually taught me how to do a, you know, how to build a financial life. And then what, you know, what changed? You know, save $50,000 a year. And I can repeat it, Len, too. And so like, you know, saving $50,000 in 2 years, really get on track financially. Like, where are we now? Like, you know, multi-millions of dollars later, you know, life has changed, you know, as a result, right? But like, that's obviously a very small component, but like, it's really like, think about those 4 components. Liz is talking to me too. Where you're going, like, where are you going now? Like paint the vision for the future. Like, all right, just everything stopped. No, like you're like, like things are progressing, things are improving, like you're going somewhere. Life is changing. I'm changing lives. I love changing lives, right? And so thank you, Liz. Danielle says thank you. My boss is listening in. So we just happens to be my wife. So what was I? Yep. So I'm a local business owner in the community. Okay. So you wanted like the verbiage behind that? Is that what people are asking? All right. So the verbiage behind like starting with the business versus starting with the product. All right. So this is what I say to people. It doesn't matter what business you represent. It's almost always the same. So like, you know, so the main thing is like, listen, I'm a business owner in the community and I'm always looking for a few key people. Don't say I'm looking for 5,000 people. Just say I'm looking for a few key people, you know, to really grow and expand with. I just love what we do. I love the fact that we change lives. And I'm just really excited about where we're going. You know, do you know anybody currently in like just career transition, just looking to make extra income, just being fulfilled with what they do? You know, any of those things resonate? You know, and just wait for answer, right? Stop talking. Because again, going back to, right, the person that's asking the questions is the person that's in control. So like if you do all the talking, you know, you're not getting any direction, you're guessing where this conversation should go. But if you're asking the questions, they provide feedback, then you know which direction to take the conversation, right? Again, the professional has the conversation with an agenda, right? And an amateur has a presentation. Let me pull out a flip chart. Like that's the worst thing you could ever do, right? So like number 7, I'm a local business owner. Did you just text this, Danielle, or type this?
Yeah, I typed what you wrote.
Oh, okay. Does that help everybody? I mean, I could go into further detail, but like the main thing is.
Well, I think, Greg, we're going to have this conversation of having a conversation with an agenda. Like that's a focus for next month. And I want to, before we get into that, because that is a conversation starter with an agenda, right? Behind it. Like you're stating that for a reason. You're looking for things for a reason, but helping people tell their story. I would say that every single person on this call could use help with how to succinctly share their story. And so maybe if anybody's willing to, I don't know, get some like coaching from Greg and Greg, if you're willing to do it, but just kind of share like how you would craft this, or you want to take some time to just answer those questions. Like, how would you answer the questions that he's put out in front of you?
Stephanie? I will do it. Nevada.
I want to unmute my friend.
All right. So I feel like mine is decent, but it might be a little bit too long. I was using a variety of supplements and products to try and address energy and mental clarity changes that I've been trying to solve for many years. I got a message from a man named Ricardo inviting me to look at what he does. I don't know him, and I've never answered messages from people I don't know, but he was authentic and intuitively knew, and I intuitively knew I should stay in touch with him. When he reached out, I was in the process of selling my house and helping my daughter move, and just emotionally drained due to the climate of the world, Corona, racial awakening, and political climate. He continued checking in with me, and 6 months later, I was ready to hear more. I wanted to get the products and try it for myself. As I learned more about the product and read testimonial after testimonial of mind-blowing results, I couldn't help but think of people in my life who were struggling with their own health mysteries and suffering daily just like me. 3 weeks into drinking ASEA, I went from having low energy and mental clarity to having the most energy and mental clarity I've ever had. I used to hit snooze up until the very last minute. Now I wake up refreshed and I'm excited to start my day. I used to struggle to get thoughts from my head to my mouth. Now I have to try and tamper my excitement a little so I'm not talking too fast.
I love it. I mean, first of all, it's authentic. You know, the main thing is you want to make sure, Nevada, that you can say that without reading it, obviously. And it just becomes, you own it, right? It just becomes a part of who you are. The other question that I want to ask every one of you that has a personal story is like, if I told that to myself, would I believe it? Meaning like, if I heard it, you know, because ultimately this is a story, right, Nevada? You're sharing your personal story, and thank you obviously for sharing. For the product side, right? Absolutely personal experience and what happened to you, Nevada, based on taking the product, right? And also a testament to Ricardo's on the call, which I will like sincerely applaud him for following up, is the main, because the fortune's in the follow-up. So the main thing is like, that's a product user story. The other side of that, of course, is that you have to decide what you want. Do you want product users, which you absolutely need, or do you want client users, or do you want representatives, right? Now here's the kicker, Nevada and others. If Ricardo came at you and said, listen, you know, Nevada, you know, I just came across your profile on Facebook, as I assume that's how you guys met, right? Right, through Facebook engagement. So, hey, just, you know, don't know if, you know, just, you know, connecting resonates, or however he said it, but, you know, like love to chat with you if you're open to it, whatever, you know, however he said it. I'm sure there's a better way to say it, Danielle, but I just, you know, totally messed it up. So the main thing is, so let me ask you a very personal question, Nevada. If Ricardo came at you and like, listen, I just came across your profile on Facebook, loved just everything about it, just really interested in connecting and learning more about what you're doing. You know, I'm a fellow business owner in the world, and just love what I do, and I'm just looking to expand and grow. Like, how would you have responded to that? Or what did Ricardo say? I'm curious, to like interest you, like in following up, or like in, you know, like answering his Facebook messages.
Whatever you just said, what you just said as the example, no, I would not answer that.
You would not answer it. Okay. And that's really like
No.
Perhaps one of the more challenging components of social media reach outs, right? Is because like, you just don't know where, because it's all like via text. You can't like read facial expressions. You can't like, you know, in some cases you can definitely feel the energy of the person, right? Like putting yourself in an energetic state to like be attracted, you know, like Danielle has that saying, I love it, which is like, that's that what you are seeking is seeking you, right? So like you just had a good alignment with Ricardo and his energy. Potentially it sounds like that's was part of your personal story, right? And like that's the reasoning behind like why you like reached back out to him after 6 months. But so
Yeah,
you're
his was a little bit personalized, and we happened to be in a similar group, which made me know like he was on a similar vibe as me.
Yep.
So, and this, a lot of people do say this intro line too, and I don't usually respond to this, but like you said, I felt like this, that I should. He said, "Hey, Nevada, I know we don't know each other, and might seem strange, but I came across your profile on a manifesting page, and I'm looking to network with like-minded individuals with high vibration. Would you be open to taking a look at what I'm doing? If not, no big deal."
Sounds familiar, Danielle. So you've coached your people well.
Yeah.
Because that's open, it's broad.
Yeah.
Love it. So it's not specific to business and or product. It's just like, hey, I just feel like we're just resonating at the same level. Love your energy, love your profile, whatever. Just compliment. CATS, right? We have the acronym CATS, CATS, compliment, attract, take away. So like the main thing is like, hey, that's exactly what Brooks is coaching, right? It's CATS to a T. So like the main thing is, just takeaways. Like, I don't know if you're personally interested, but just would love to connect. So that's a beautiful intro, obviously. And it just, you're going to attract the people that are feeling that vibe, or you're not. So Frizina, did I pronounce that right? Frizina? I don't want to mispronounce it. But the main thing is like CATS is, so compliment, C is compliment. Thank you, Danielle. Attract, take away, set an appointment. Right. And that's exactly what Brooks, Fraser Brooks is doing. So, and that's exactly what you all are doing in a sense. I just teach it as CATS. So the main thing is, like you're not being specific on anything. You're keeping it broad. You're complimenting to the person. And it's just, but I think once you get on, like Nevada, so curious to know, like once you engage with Ricardo, like where did that conversation go from there? Like, did he start talking about product? Did he start, like you learn more about him and what he was about, but it wasn't like he was pushing product, right? He wasn't pushing business. He was just telling you just became more informed about what he was doing, correct? Is that safe to assume?
Yeah, so he invited me to the Zoom to learn about cellular health.
Okay.
So he just, again, left it broad. And then I, as many other people that I have talked to frequently say, which I know is just an objection of figuring out how to overcome it. They're like, well, I want to try it and see what it does for me first.
Yeah.
And because I'm not going to be out here telling people that this is amazing when I'm not going to practice something that I'm not, preaching. So if I'm using it and it works well for me, then, I'm going to talk to people about it because I want them to use something. Because there's a lot of information out there to sift through. It's exhausting.
Yeah, and you can. And that's what's working for us or against us in any type of industry that you're in, is like the Google mentality of like, oh, I'm just going to go look it up and become informed that way. Like, well, is everything on the internet correct? Is everything that you read on the internet, truthful? Like, I don't think so. Right. So would you rather get that information from a viable source or just what you read on the internet, somebody that you can potentially trust? So what did you just say, Danielle? So what is an example of takeaway? Yeah, it's just no big deal. I thought I'd ask. So the takeaway is like, listen, you're probably not interested, but I'm just, just learning more about each other, learning more about what we're trying to accomplish in this world, that kind of thing. And so like, to me, it's like all of my interactions are kind of related to like, listen, we're just here to make the world a better place. This isn't about selling you anything, put your wallet, put your checkbook away. This is just simply to create an awareness that, this something like this is out there, and like, if it resonates, great. If not, no big deal, and so like, that's a long version. Like the shorter you can be, the better, right? And so like, again, if your personal story, like I've heard Robin tell her personal story, which is like 30 minutes long, which is like, I was like falling asleep. So the main thing is like your story, again, 8 seconds is typically the time frame that you have to like say something of interest to the person so they'll remain engaged. And then after that, obviously it just simply becomes to me, it simply becomes a formality of like what type of business they're going to do. So like, or what form of, what type of, what category will they potentially fall in? Again, client or product user, representative, or sphere of influence for your business. And so like any three of those outcomes, obviously, like I said, is a winning outcome. It's just simply of like, what do you want to do? So like, again, it's a little bit different from my engagement because you're like, because you keep it very broad, where like I'm engaging people for a very specific purpose and wherever that direction goes. So they know why I'm engaging them. So like, it's up to me to like ultimately attract who I want, but that's, like through social media, like, reaching out on social media, like it's just keeping it broad, like you are doing, like Danielle is coaching, like Ricardo's doing, and so on and so forth, is like really just, it's good because it's kept broad, it's kept specific, and it illustrates the point that you care about somebody else, a fellow human being on this earth, right? That messaging should like really clearly elicit that. And so, and then when it comes to like your personal story, Nevada, like that's something like to just continue to craft and refine. Now, Robin's personal story is like 30 seconds.
Do you find that the people that you prospect are interested in the business, or do they want to start with product? Well, I guess, do they want to start checking out the product for themselves first, or is it a little of both?
Well, here's really, and you hit on it pretty well, Nevada. Here's the point, is that no one's going to go into an ASEA business without trying to see it first. Let's be quite frank. But here's really the psychology behind it. And that is like, because you started off with a business perspective versus a product perspective, or if you do that, they're going to be a product user anyway, right? So you might as well go for the business side first with the fallback as the product, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you start with the business side and say, listen, I'm just, I'm a business owner in the community or just in the world today. I'm just looking to expand with a few key people that are really just, just on my type of level, and just really want to help people and serve people and make a difference in the world. Like, do you know anybody like that? And you're not saying, hey, Ricardo, do you know, is that you? You're just keeping it broad, keeping it non-specific. But then if they say, yeah, it absolutely interests me, I'm just interested to learn more. Like, great, you go into the business, this is what it's about. But then like the amazing product behind it is really what's the driver, but again, you're going to have a product user as a formality of being in the business anyway. With the worst case scenario, like think about it. The worst case scenario is you have a product user for life that's on auto ship that spends like me, like $16,000 a month on ASEA. So like the main thing is like, that's the worst. You have to look at like, well, that's the worst case scenario is like, I have a product user for life. They still like me. They're a sphere of influence for my business versus like you rub them the wrong way with the product first, with like, you're not able to articulate it well or whatever, or they start asking questions because people are going to ask questions about what you put in your body. Like if it's anything that goes in your mouth, they're going to ask questions about like, what does it do? Like, what is it going to do for me? Versus like you start with business, they're like, well, they're not putting anything in their mouth when you're talking about a business or putting anything on their skin. They're just simply, you're talking about a business. So does that make sense to everybody? Like you can't screw up the business part. It's either they're interested in doing something different, making more money, whatever, however you want to articulate or put it. But then the fallback is almost always like they'll become a product user for life.
Guess personally, and I don't know if this is true for women or if it's just true for people that maybe are parents and already have a lot going on in addition to themselves.
Yeah.
Starting a business sounds intimidating to me, whereas checking out a product for my health does not.
Oh.
So that may just be a mental thing that I have hurdle that I have to get over around that. That may not be true for everyone, but it sounds just like a lot to
consider.
Yeah.
A lot to consider from a first conversation. And so one of the things that you can say is that what I realized as a business owner, Nevada, is that, and all the people that I sit down with, there's a majority, want or need to make more money, over what they're currently doing. And so, right now, like really what's happened with the world with COVID and just people like being downsized or just, less hours or whatever, that's become more and more of a realization for me. And so like, just want to just kind of plant that seed with you is like, as a business owner, I am always looking to expand with a few key people. But in the meantime, I'd just love to share with you a little bit more details about what what's behind it, the efficiencies and the awesomeness of the product that I represent, and just see if that resonates too. So like you always look at two sides of things. Like you have to be sharing the product side, but you also have to be sharing obviously the business side. I'm just simply, and again, this is a situation that would be somewhat difficult to read on a social media platform just through typing about like where people's like interests lie or like the intimidation factor. So just, but that's again, an opportunity for you all to continue to hone some of those crafts as far as like, okay, what's working when I engage this way versus what's not working, and so like you all get together and gather and like you obviously, share with what's happening, what's working. And so I would be very curious on my own end to like know like, okay, if we kind of like craft it in two different ways, like what are some of the more better outcomes? Because really ultimately, if you're wanting to do this as a business, like it absolutely 100% is the law of large numbers, right? And so like if the business message has a 60% success rate and the product message has a 30% success rate, like which one are you going to consistently stick with? You know what I'm saying? And then the 30%ers become like, yeah, I heard of that ASEA product once. And somebody approached me about the business and I really didn't understand it and I never used the product. Well, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just, if it's the right person, it's the right person. If it's the wrong person, it's the wrong person kind of thing. I don't know. I mean, there's no other way to articulate it other than the fact that that's what it really comes down to. Like if it's the right person, it's the right person. If it's not, it's not. And you will know, Nevada, almost like you felt with Ricardo, like, hey, this guy's energy is good. He's not a psycho, like he cares about what happens to me, like he's interested in my well-being, through just the interactions that I'm getting from him. And so like that's really the ultimate outcome of like just about every interaction that you want, right? It was like, okay, I know, like, trust, right? Those three things, like, and that just takes time.
Yeah, I think what Greg said is something that everybody should work on. We realized this last year when we started doing social media and we came up with those 2-minute voice memos. We started hearing everybody's, it was the product testimonial. That's what the voice memo was. Mm-hmm. And I know Ricardo and I probably went through 30 iterations of his voice memo because I said, well, wait a second, you're telling me you want to grow a business, but you're talking about how a product helped you sleep better. Like, I don't see the correlation. Mm-hmm. So I think that's something that, we all have to wake up to is like, we are blessed with a beautiful product. We are. And your story can be incorporated as to how powerful that product was for you, but you're growing this business for a different reason. Like Mary Vic, when she told me her story, she started talking about her husband's stroke a ton. And I said, your husband's stroke is not the reason that you're building a business, right? It helped you understand the power of this technology. It was a wake-up call for you to realize, hey, there needs to be another stream of income coming in. Like, these are the things you want to talk about, not, wow, it like healed X and Y and Z with his stroke. So one thing that I think, Fraser always talks about is you can lead with either business or product, right? See what the results are, see what you like doing. I'm not going to tell you to do one way or the other. Greg always taught me, if you lead with the business, you can fall back on the product. That made logical sense to me. That if you like talking about the product and that's where your comfort zone is, that's fine. Okay, that is fine if that's where you are right now, and your confidence about the business will go up with time. I promise you that. But have a story for each. Be able to tell your product story in a succinct, compliant way, that helps people see what it might mean for them, right? Because Naomi talking about her thyroid means nothing to me because I don't have thyroid issues, but she can point to, and in her story, she can share about how it helps with so much, right? That, wow, it helped my body do what it needed. And it helped me with this. My friend that shared it with me, it helped her with the back. Like, it's been crazy to learn all the stuff it helps people with. Right? Let other people paint themselves into it if you're leading with the product. But what I would challenge you to do, what I would like to spend the next 20 minutes doing is tell a business story. Where were you when it came to your finances, your financial health, where you were with your, whatever you were doing in your life, work-wise? What changed? right? So the ASEA business was brought to you in some way, shape, or form. All right. Where are you now with it? And where are you going? So some of you have said to me, Danielle, I haven't had success. How can I talk about the business? That is irrelevant. It is irrelevant to what the potential is for someone else to succeed in this business. It doesn't matter the success you've had. Borrow somebody else's story if you need it. I saw what Danielle was able to do. She got rid of 2 part-time jobs and now she's able to do it full-time. And I got inspired to think, wow, I can do that too. Whatever story you need, right? The story's out there. It's just like ASEA. You don't need to have your own product experience to share it. It's going to do something different for them anyway. But telling them about the potential with it, let them decide. So just think about those 4 parts. It's going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to know what to say. It's going to feel funny coming out of your mouth. That's okay. You're going to get into your groups and share it. If you all caught, Debbie Wexler did a phenomenal talk at Envision, and she gave words for, that Pat Quinn coached her on for what to say about the product, what to say about the business. I've asked her for, I know she was reading it, so I've asked her for the type of thing she wrote because it was great verbiage. These are the things. You're not going to be perfect today. We have a whole month to work on this, right? So I'm just going to invite you to fail forward and just try and see what comes out and really ask yourself these questions because it's different. Me too, it's different. When Alyssa and I made our first business talk and I had to do my business testimonial, I was like, oh, this is weird. I don't know how to do it. But having her coach me through it actually was super helpful because she could see things that I couldn't see. So I think it's been really great to be in groups. Greg, any final thoughts for everybody before they go do this activity for the first time?
Yeah, I would also encourage probably to have really to know the 3 stories. One is your own. The others is your sponsor uplines and the company's. So like any one of those 3 would be obviously good to know and memorize, like, because the company's story is like really, really super powerful, right? Like, like they're going to get bought out by a pharmaceutical company. They're like, no, this is not going to, it's not going to turn out the way we want it to, so like all, like having those 3 stories on at your disposal, like is really kind of key too, because that can, you can direct the conversations with some of those, some of those stories as well. Because again, it always goes back to story selling, right? Versus fact telling, and so like, if you've got those 3 at your like disposal in your toolbox, like that's a huge asset for you. Hopefully that helps.
Helps a ton. And that's, yeah. That is, I'm really happy you said that because after you master your own story, that is what's next. How do you tell your sponsors and how do you tell the company story, which is huge.
Yeah. And so, and just really, you can script it out. You can write it down like Nevada did and probably some others as well. But like, you really just kind of have to just let it flow and just let it, I've told my personal story, like obviously, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, right? But the main thing is like, it's natural, it's emotional. Like if your personal story doesn't quite, and you're also to know like your personal story evolves, right? Like it's not like done yet. It's still ongoing. Like that's why it's the journey called life, and so the main thing is like, it needs with 100%, like, like 100% certainty, like has to contain emotional components to it. Like you have to have an emotion behind it, and so I was like, yeah, I just came across this stuff. It tastes like pool water, but it changed my life. Great. So like, I don't know if that's going to really resonate with many people, but go for it. The main thing is like, you can't, like, you can, like, that's why it's a game. Like, I just really treated this as a game. Like, okay, this didn't work so well, reevaluate, don't beat yourself up, and just continue to evolve and just get better. Like the fact of the matter is, if you have practiced 30 to 60 or 100 times a day on social media, like, well, that's like unbelievable practice, right? So like, I just practiced cold calling, like literally calling people I didn't ever meet. And that's how I got kind of decent at talking to people. So, but the main thing.
I remember, Greg, you said something to me, you and Liz always said, the person who tells their story the most times in a day wins. Because you're going to connect with the ones that resonate with it. And so you just need to get your story out there more and more. Treat it like a game.
If you, and that's really the ultimate thing is, if you want to stop having inconsistencies with income, start having consistencies with your story. Like, and be consistently telling your story. Like, it was always taught to like to share the dream at least 3 to 5 times a day. Or start with 1 a day, start with 1 a week, start with 1 a month. I don't care, but like start where you're at. and then see how it goes. But the consistencies, as Jackie will tell you, Jacqueline Davidson would tell you that you can't work out once a month and hope to get good results, right? But you have to work out, 3 times a week, 5 times a week, whatever. So, but where you are is where you are, and where you are is meant to be. And it's not a forever thing, That's why today is, you get today once, and you got to make the best of today.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Greg. I appreciate your time so much. I know everybody does. Everybody's really excited to have you come on. So we, Mom's been working in the background to put you guys in your mastermind groups. Some of you on this call aren't in the program, so you're going to be in your own little group, and we'll talk more later. So thank you, Greg, for your time and your insights, and as I call them, your Weido words of wisdom. We appreciate you. And,
you're welcome.
You'll be back next month to talk about having conversations with an agenda. So between now and then, everyone's going to master their stories.
All right.
Thank you so much, Greg.
You're very welcome, everyone.
Thanks,
Love
Greg.
Uh,
you all.
Lots of thanks in the chat.
Oh. All right, guys. Anything you all need, just let me know.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, bye.
And if you guys need to find Greg, he's in Team Dragonfly. So you can find him in there, Greg Weido. So, all right, Mom, you want to let everybody know what's going on? And I would say you get like a minute or two, each of you, and just switch. Just try. Speak from your heart and try.
All right, so everybody I think knows their mastermind groups. Everybody is in those mastermind groups. There's one group where none of the folks are on there, and I think, Stephanie, that's the group you were going to be in. So I've put you in a different group just for today, but it's not going to matter. Practice your stories, everyone, and we will send you a note when it's ready to come back. So I am going to open all your rooms. We will see you soon. Danielle, let's pause the recording.
All right, everybody's back. I know we're figuring out this breakout room thing. Teams jumped off of Zoom, and I don't even know where they went. So hopefully that was a good experience. And I would encourage you guys to practice with your groups in the coming week during your mastermind. Maybe use that during your mastermind to talk about that. Those groups are in place for you for whatever you need. We wanted to share with you the standings. So in first place is Christine Sullivan. She has had 10 points total. So way to go, Christine. In second place, we've got Marie Perez and Ricardo tied. They each have 7 points. So way to go, you two. And next up is Donna with 4 points. Way to go, Donna. Then we have Mary Vic and Juliet, who both have 3 points. And then we have a whole bunch of you with 2 points. Cassandra, Wendy Patterson, Frusina, Christy, Kelly, Anna, Brigida, and Naomi. All of you have 2 points, so well done. And then those of you with 1 point on the board, we've got Kathy Stolze, Sarah J, Sarah H, and Jackie. So way to go. If I didn't say your name, it's because I have no points tracked for you. So you either didn't report them or you haven't gotten people on yet. So make sure that you're focused on that this week. And we have a very special announcement with a way to get some extra points this week. So hopefully all of you are aware that Tyler Norton is coming on for an interview on Saturday morning. It is 10 a.m. East Coast time. You will get a point for every prospect you have on that call that's new, right? Their first thing that counts, just that's normal. But you can use that if you want for them, if it makes sense. You will get a point for every current customer that you get on that call, because those interviews are in place as a touch point for your current consumers to continue to learn more and get excited. You will also get a point for any associate that is already signed up and in your downline that comes onto that call. All right, so this week, I want you to also focus on follow-up with current people, because that's really key and keeping them plugged in. So anyone new on counts. Any current customer on counts. Any current associate that's on counts. All right, that is this coming Saturday. And then many of you know Eric Worre is hosting a group of ASEA leaders at his home and then live streaming a very special Super Saturday. You will also get a point for every downline of yours that is on that training and it's registered for it. They have to be registered. So let us know if you've already got downline registered for Eric Worre, send them to me as points. And then let us know who comes in on Saturday with Tyler. Any questions before we let everybody go?
If they're there.
What's that, Jackie?
If they go through the customer group, I mean, I guess we just ask them if they were there. Because otherwise we're not going to be able to really see.
You need to follow up with your people, right? So after you say, hey, what did you like best? So you know the people that are on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great question, because that's huge. It's like you don't just tell people to go see something. You then say, hey, how did you like it? What did you enjoy? Right?
And will you post all this, what you said now, and will you post that in the cash wheel? Yeah,
Yeah, I will,
please.
Rita, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Looks like mom.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
That our story, it should be top 2 minutes, but is it preferable shorter, or should it be around 2 minutes? How long is the best? How long should we make it?
I've always been told like you need a 30-second version, a 2-minute version, and like a 5-minute version if needed. Like you'll just know the setting. But I would say for our purposes, if you're building on social media, we tell you to get a 2-minute voice memo, no longer. If it's shorter, that's fine, so long as it contains all the elements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
You got to establish a know, like, trust relationship, and your story is where that occurs. So you don't want to ramble, because then you lose people and they're like annoying. But if you keep people engaged, 2 minutes max.
Okay.
Good question. Awesome. All right, rock stars. Well, we are going to be having a kind of like a dance recital where everyone does the dance they've been working on. We're going to have that for your stories. So stay tuned because you're all going to be coming on and sharing your stories. And I think it's going to be really fun to celebrate and connect to each other and learn and kind of get verbiage and see what works, right? This is always evolving, but by the end of the month, that's what we'll be doing. So make sure you're working on it this week with your mastermind group. If you want specific help from your upline, make sure you ask them. But start with the people that you've been connected with in your mastermind. Group feedback is really, really helpful. They might see things that you don't see. So anything else, Mom or Alyssa, before we wrap up?
To clarify from Nevada's question about Tyler being on Facebook Live, it's in the VIP customer group live on Facebook, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just curious. One of my clients is not on Facebook at all, but her daughter is, so maybe I can see if they can watch it together or something. But the mom would be probably more interested in it.
Yeah, discoverasia.com. It's always live streamed there, and then it's live on Facebook.
You say we're having a dance party to talk about our stories. It kind of garbled up. I know you didn't
But
say
it's
that.
like a dance party. It's like a dance recital.
Jackie's just ready to dance, y'all.
You can dance while you tell yours, Jackie.
Can you tell me what you said?
Sounds like fun.
I said it's like a dance recital. We will be coming and sharing our stories. Yes, Sarah.
Excuse me. The person that I had that watched one of the webinars, if they also come to Tyler's, does that count, or does it have to be somebody that we haven't had on before?
Is this person a current customer or associate?
No.
Oh, the prospect that's continuing to learn. Oh, I see. They've already counted as a point already for cash flow.
Correct.
That is a question I don't have the answer to. I have to talk to Alyssa and my mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question to piggyback off of that then. So if it's someone I've been talking to months before cash fill, and they haven't counted towards a point towards it, it does count as a point for Tyler?
That would count if they haven't signed up yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. If they've already counted towards cash flow, that's where I'm not sure.
Got it.
So, we said no double dipping on points. So yeah, we'll clarify that. All right, cool. You guys are great. I'm proud of you. Keep it up, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks,
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.